Okay, welcome back. We have now come back out of closed session and we have no reportable actions. So then we have item 4 for, actually item 5 for any more public comment. Okay, so then we go on to item 6, consent agenda. And this is A, to approve minutes from November 26th, 2018, and approve disbursements for December 10th, 2018. Do we have everybody in favor? Anything to be held?
I should be arguing over, sitting in this chair, I should be arguing over commas
I
and
know.
periods, but I move approval.
Second.
Okay. Anybody? All in favor?
I have to abstain because I wasn't here on the
Sure,
26th.
And I know I have to abstain as well.
I should too.
Do we have three? Okay, all
We're
in
gonna be
favor?
deadlocked then.
Yeah, then we
Yeah.
have 3.
Then I'll go and support it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Consent agenda. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, they did pass. Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, so now we go on to regular business, item A, 7A, amend the unrepresented employee manual and amend the sewer authority Midcoastside wage schedule effective January 1st, 2019.
So the timing of this is that the unrepresented manual is in January, whereas the local 39, their cost of living adjustments occur in July 1. So there's always this lag time. And what I have done is each year brought it forward that basically the unrepresented positions would get the same percentage of cost of living adjustment that the representeds, so that we can keep that gap between the supervisor and those that are being supervised. And then if there are any other minor changes that need to be made, there really aren't that many changes this time. It's primarily just the, excuse me,
The wage schedule.
the amount, and then also, I would like to recommend increasing the cost that Sam contributes toward medical to an even $2,000 per month.
That was not in the staff report.
It's on the second page of the staff report, there's 2 bullet points. It's increased at $45 a month for the employer contribution.
I apologize, I
Yeah.
missed that.
Yeah, and then the cost of living is 3%, which is exactly what the the represented were
What is-
given in June, July.
What is the reason for the $45 a month increase?
Excuse me, sorry, the $1,955 has actually been in place since 2014. So it has not changed, and the cost of the health and welfare programs have gone up fairly drastically during that same time frame. And so this is just kind of like a COLA for that aspect of it. And it's actually quite nominal compared to the increases since that time frame.
And how much is that total cost
The total
Just
cost for the,
for all of our employees, in other words?
well, it's just 2 in this group. There's only 2 unrepresented employees.
So we're talking about an extra $90 a
Yes.
month.
Yes,
Gotcha. Well, I think that's fine.
okay.
Carl, have you reviewed all of this? Because we don't have an employment attorney.
Oh, okay. I haven't reviewed it, but but there are only a few revisions, and the ones that are described in the bullet points don't give me any cause for concern. Because that's really a policy question, what the increase in salaries or benefits should be.
Right. But the rest of it, all of the employee manual part?
I believe that, well,
This,
I don't know.
this
if
was all, yeah, this was all reviewed the
by
last
by the
time.
Labor
Oh,
Council
okay.
And so,
previously.
yeah,
So it's only
previously.
only the changes would be what I would be wanted to look at.
Okay.
Right,
And as I said, those are all policy matters.
I apologize for my confusion.
and then also, because we are required by CalPERS to have a biweekly wage schedule, that it also needs to be amended to reflect the difference.
And the $45 a month would actually be half of that every 2 weeks, or,
We actually have 26 pay periods, so we
Okay.
split it over 26.
okay.
So, the merit increase every year, how often does that not get paid?
Well, the merit increase would be the step increase,
Mhm.
and that is based on performance. So I can only speak for the 3 years that I've been here, that it has occurred each year.
For every employee?
Well, this would be for the unrepresented, there's
But I'm
only
also
two.
curious about the, as long as we're talking about that, has it also occurred for every union employee at,
Well, that would be something that would be covered in the local 39 MOU, and it does have a provision that would allow for that. And once again, that's on a case-by-case basis.
but does it ever not get,
Sometimes it does not.
so there are, cases that if we ask for documentation, there are sometimes it does not happen.
Yes, I can only speak for the 3 years that I've been
Right.
here, but there have been a few instances where that particular issue came up, and that a merit increase was either not applied or delayed. And those are personnel issues, so I would have to talk about them in closed session.
Right, sure.
I understand that, but I guess it's a sense, and as I was informed on this one, that we can talk about that. If it's automatic, that means that everyone gets an automatic total 6% increase every year.
It's not automatic.
Right.
They must go through a performance evaluation that we added actually with the language to make sure that it is very clear that it is merit-based and that each employee has to be evaluated, excuse me, prior to receiving the merit increase. We also, in the current MOU, expanded out, it used to be 5 steps, we expanded it out to 7 steps, so that it would give the employees longer to work their way before they topped out, so that there would be a 7-year stretch instead of a 5-year stretch for them achieving those merit increases. And it's a smaller percentage, it used to be a larger percentage between each step. So it's a smaller percentage between each step, and there are more steps.
That was during the last negotiation.
That was during the last
I understand this is
negotiation.
negotiated, I understand
Yeah,
that.
but
I just was
also-
when you add the two together, if most people get it, it's a 6% a year raise for everybody.
If they do, and
Including
also,
these two people. covered
including
by-
these 2 classifications. Also to point out that once you reach the top step, there are no more, unless you were to promote into one of the other classifications.
And how long does it take to get, 7 years, you're saying, to get to the?
Well, if you were brought in at step 1, step 7, so you would have 7 points to reach that.
So you would get 3% increases.
If you were to meet your goals for that year,
Thank you.
that's correct.
But not all employees are brought in at step 1?
It varies based on their experience. A lot
Right.
of times, we promote from within, and so when they're initially brought in, they are usually brought in at a lower step. They may or may not have all the experience, but then obviously if they're going to promote to a higher position, then it just depends on where they are in the previous classification.
So somebody who came in at 10,000 a year, and
Excuse me.
in year 2 of their employment, they would get a 3% increase, 3% of the 10,000. And then they were promoted after that to a job where they got 15,000 a year, they would start at step 2.
It would depend on the language. Each contract has its own language.
Okay, all right,
These are the unrepresented. Obviously, the representatives are negotiated with the union.
right.
That contract is actually expiring June 30th, so I'm sure we'll be having those discussions soon. But with regards to the unrepresented, that is the case. I would say in the unrepresented, it is more likely that you would, because the classifications that are included tend to be higher, you would likely see someone not starting at a step one. Just because it's the skills, experience, education might warrant something other than step one.
So
But it's
once,
not guaranteed, it's just possible.
so once they reach step 7, they only get the cost of living, they never get a,
That's correct. They never, unless something were to be changed, like an entire wage schedule were to be adjusted for some reason, they would top out, and then it would just be whatever is the
cost of living.
cost of living for that particular group of employees, either the unrepresented
Great,
or the
thank you.
represented.
I understand that better now, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Any more discussion?
No, I move that we adopt the use, amend the unrepresented employees manual establishing wage benefits and terms and something else.
It would be amending the biweekly wage schedule.
And bi-weekly wage schedule.
Second.
Okay, second. Okay, any more discussion? So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So now we go to item B. Review and adopt the use of electronic communication devices during board meetings policy.
Yes, this was a request from the chair that I bring this forward. What I did was, this has been beat up ad nauseum by the League of California Cities, the California Special District Association, CSAC, which is the county version of the League of California Cities, because obviously it's very common now for board members, council members to have electronic devices using iPads or various other pieces of technology during meetings. And so the request was for me to put together a draft policy based on a lot of that input, and there are example policies all over. And so I picked some language that I thought was relatively simple, seemed to be well-crafted, recommended by the League of California Cities. This is one of the ones that's done so much work on this. And so that's what you have in front of you, is language that's recommended by the League.
You know, I don't see the need for this myself. And I,
What do you want to do? Okay, sure.
I really don't see why we have this. I don't understand the reason for it.
Well, I can tell you, like I said, the chair had asked for me to put this on the
Right.
agenda.
Yeah.
And it is something that the three main agencies within the state, CSAC, the League of California Cities, and CSDA, have been encouraging, as has ICMA, with regards to transparency and the appearance of transparency as well, with regards to how business is conducted and making sure that we're held to the highest standard. And so as I said, the league has done a lot of work on this, and so I've put this forward based on some of the language that I see both from CSDA and the League of California Cities.
Thank you.
I tend to agree with it. I found the noise of people getting messages and things to be somewhat distracting. And I think we can all control ourselves for a couple hours.
I find it invasive. To me, it's more regulation than I wanna see in a comfortable board situation. We don't have this at city council. people turn their phones off, so there is no noise if they need to do something on their phone. It- I just don't see the need for it, and I don't like more regulations. I just don't.
Well, I'm not a real fan of regulation, but you get regulation when, people start, expanding beyond the, reasonable limits, and I think that, the pings and the things that were going on, I found to be distracting, and I agree with Beverly. I think that, it's important to, appearance is reality, and I think it's very, very important for us to be paying full attention to, what's going on here.
I don't know when you mean, what pings are you talking about? I have never noticed it at a meeting, that there's been disturbances from cell phones.
Well, there was one board member who was getting calls, texts from his wife, wondering when the meeting was going to be over. There was another time where there was somebody in the audience, working on a phone, and then another board member was getting pings and responding back, and so it, I think that it's very important for all communication in, a public meeting to be public.
Well, I agree with that, but I think that that's different from pings and, turning off your phone during a meeting. I agree with Deborah, I think this is this doesn't really change public perception of what, we're all sitting here with computers open in front of us.
Right.
The appearance of it doesn't matter what's on here. I mean, if we're asking good questions and paying attention, that's what matters. It's
Yes.
not, if somebody's sitting there, it's a question of how we behave at the meeting. I just feel like, and the one that gets me is this policy does not prohibit using an electronic communications device in the event of an urgent family matter. I mean, exactly how would you know that there was
Yeah,
an
That
urgent
was a
family
good
matter?
question.
And how does it have to be family? You could get an urgent message about something else.
Your house is on fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything,
I mean, I think unless there's a problem, it seems like this is a solution in search of a problem.
yeah.
If you were to take this, proposed policy literally, and you had a laptop in front of you and you wanted to look up the meaning of a word or what
Right.
you couldn't do it because it's not just looking directly at the agenda, so it's overly restrictive, and as I heard, it's a solution in terms of a problem.
Yeah, I think if a problem comes up at a board meeting with someone who's obviously being distracted, then it's the chairman of the board
Yeah,
job to call that person on it
yeah,
at the time.
yeah.
That's my sense.
Jim, what do you think? You asked.
I think, well, I mean, like I understand Deborah's point, I mean, it comes down to perception, and so, but if we have, I agree, it's hard to enforce because we all have the computers open, we all have agendas here, and it's hard to enforce with the phones, but the question, if you aren't getting texts, maybe sort of just comes down to not getting text during the meeting. And then, but that issue, I can see your point. Having the board, having the chair call
Yeah.
off the issue may be an issue, but then you may get into confrontation. But it comes down to understanding that texts during meetings are really not really, that's what the biggest issue is, isn't it?
From a legal perspective, I know that there was an impetus to have these sort of policies because the city of San Francisco that supervisors were texting with their supporters or texting with people that were interested in things, and that's not appropriate under the Brown Act, because the communications are supposed to be open and
Right.
public.
Right.
And if you have a private text message about a matter that's on the agenda, you, by definition, you're not complying with that. And I think that may be the spirit of,
Right.
under which the League of Cities and CSAC and CSDA develop these sort of policies. You know, it's for the board to decide whether that is something you want to do for yourselves. But that's the context where it's legally appropriate and one might say necessary to compel compliance with the Brown Act.
And-
But I'm not, you know,
But if it's against the Brown Act, it's against the Brown Act. You know, I mean, I guess I'd be
Sure.
fine with something that says no texting people about a subject you're talking about during a meeting, but, you know.
My feeling is we let it alone unless there's a problem. If a problem comes up, then we can look at it again, say this is a problem.
And I think there should be an expectation that we turn our phones, you know, to silent
Yeah.
during meetings. And
Yeah,
I've got mine sitting here upside down, you know?
right.
I think, I agree with everybody. I think it's a supportive, it's a supportive motion, it's a supportive proposed policy. It's not inhibitive, it's the supportive, positive, constructive thing that doesn't hurt, it doesn't restrict anybody from the exceptions. You're not restricted from family or from an important thing, it doesn't restrict. It's
You
just-
can't look up
it's a
something if you
positive-
wanted to go with
it's a
somebody
what's
positive-
urgent.
It's a constructive, supportive policy, which I think has no harm, and it doesn't hurt to have. It's a good thing to have.
I think for those of us who, I mean, all my agendas are on this. All of my agenda packets are on this. And I would find it difficult to go back, all my notes are on it because the app I've got, and I would find it very difficult to not use this little skinny binder is really about that fat of information. But I think personal phones and that kind of thing is different.
Well, maybe what we ought to do is look at it and I'd like to look at how the league has written it. I'd like to do more research on my own on what it should say. I don't like the idea of saying just urgent family matters, for instance. How do you define urgent? Does it have to be family? Could it be a neighbor? Do I wanna look something up in here, as Barbara said? You know, a definition, I think it's too restrictive the way it's written. And,
Why do I suggest we table it and just see how things work? I thank you, Jim, for bringing this up. I think the discussion is really important, and I think that there will be, at least one report in here, who knows? And so I think that having, what's it called, the Westinghouse effect, where if you look at something, things change, so I think that's important.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we go on to item 7C, review and adopt the bank accounts balance.
Well, this is going along the lines of trying to get things
Right.
to match what we do. I had actually drafted this some time ago and then was going to bring it forward and then the bank was purchased. And so I needed to hold off until we had transitioned to make sure that the process and procedures would be the same with the new bank. And so this matches with what we're currently doing with Tri-Counties, which is the bank that purchased First National Bank. And so this allows us to reflect things like bank drafts and EFTs and direct deposits and things that the previous policy was written so long ago, it didn't, we really weren't doing those things back then. And so this would rescind the Resolution 3, 2004, which was, obviously, it was approved in 2004, and the banking industry has changed quite drastically since then, and it replaces it with a policy that is similar in the fact that it's still saying this is what we should be doing, this is how we should be managing the accounts, but it also recognizes that from a procedural standpoint, we also have direct deposits and all of these electronic processes that have come about since 2004. And just for clarification for those who had not been here, the auditor's concern that he expressed, or the firm expressed back when I first got here, was that the policies even then did, and this was before we changed the software, even then did not reflect the fact that we were already doing EFTs, bank drafts, and direct deposits.
Right.
And we had been doing them for quite some time.
It's
So-
nice to have our written policies catch up.
Yes,
That's also good. My experience is that if you're getting investigated or sued, and your written policies don't match what you're doing, you're in.
and the other issue is that, the original resolution specifically stated it must be the manager and a board member, and yet there were times where the manager was out, and so it would take 2 board members to be able to issue checks, but that wasn't allowed under the policy, and so there was not enough flexibility to allow for work to get done.
Sure, okay.
Well, I move that we discuss and adopt the bank accounts policy and rescind the Resolution 3, 2004.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Very good.
Well done.
Very
I think it's
good.
really good to have
Thank you, Beverly.
procedures that match.
Yes.
That are sensible and match
Yeah,
what you're
thank you.
doing.
We're good.
Yes,
I
great.
agree.
Thank you for updating it. Okay, so now we have item D. Authorize a review of SAM's internal control processes and procedures within the financial reporting system.
Yeah, this has my name on it because it was the recommendation ultimately of someone that we retained through my office. And the idea is, the auditor had identified these issues, that the procedures don't relate to the current software and staff positions, and so just seeking board direction to to bring these up to date and make sure they reflect current staffing and current software and that sort of thing, so that they're all in order, so that we can get a clean audit next time.
Thank you.
Was
Sort of
this
the
the
idea.
forensic auditors,
Pardon me?
was this a summary of what the forensic auditor had said?
Yes.
Right. Any discussion?
I move that we authorize a review of SAM's internal control processes and procedures within the financial reporting system.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion?
I want to thank Beverly and
Thank you.
Carl on
Yes.
this. I think that once we get this kind of thing in order, it will leave a lot less accusatory material,
Gosh,
and Sam will function more smoothly, so thank you.
well, I get that too, so thank you, Beverly, maybe Carl. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, very good. So now I have, hi, Denise. General manager.
If we're good, we
Making
can
good
get out of here
progress.
by 8:30.
Good progress.
Well, the reason why this is on here is we didn't get to it before. So, you have the report. If you have any questions, staff is happy to answer whatever questions you might have. Otherwise, just happy to have it out there as information.
Thank you, thank you. So I'll take
I do have a question. It seemed to me with this that, so this was presented from the month of October. What about the blue tanks? Are they coming back?
There's actually, two at, do you want me to take this?
Yes.
Please.
There's actually two at the, Montera pump station, right next to the Walker tank.
Right.
And right now, I'm only looking at having two out there because we have the 200,000 gallons of storage at the Burnham Strip in El Granada. And we have the additional 400 plus another 20 at Montera now. So depending on what things look like.
So you think that the
reason that we kept most of them last year, I don't mean to cut you off, but the reason that we kept most of them last year is because we had everything going on with the IPS. So if we had to retain flow, we wanted to have the additional storage at Montera so that we could retain flow in that area if need be.
so it was an insurance measure
It
last
was an
year.
insurance measure because it's a hell of a lot cheaper than the alternative.
And we had two major projects that were going on last year. We had the bus duct repair, where we were also going to have to hold, as well as the IPS repair project. So it seemed prudent.
Okay, and have you looked at the weather reports for this coming year? Is it gonna be dry,
It's
wet?
supposed to be a El Nino light. As Director Rohrbach can agree to that, we were at the meeting last Friday, and this is what they told us. Whatever that means.
Yes, what does
I-
that?
They said it's supposed to be kind of wet in January, December, January, but
Taper off.
2017 was also not supposed to be a very wet year.
Yes, right.
Right, we have double the snowpack right now in the mountains that we've
Wow.
had for several years.
Has anybody read the almanac?
We should
A lot
keep
of, a lot
it
of
up.
communities are ahead of the normal to date in
Yeah.
terms of rainfall.
Oh, they
Even
are?
before this
Yep.
storm, yeah.
In the Bay Area?
In the Bay Area, yeah.
And
Yeah.
as we get the storm notification is not when we need to get the tanks in place.
Right.
So it's better, as Tim said, to have it and not need it than the alternative.
Yeah.
So we've got the 400,000 gallons and the 200,000 gallons and the two tanks at MWSD
it's an
and,
additional 40,000 gallons or 20,000 gallons each.
right,
So that gives us 640.
okay. And that and, all our electronics and SCADAs and are all tried and true, so, and we have enough crew that can sleep 3 hours a week.
That part's always questionable.
Okay, that's, well, I will trust you.
You can only work people 20 hours a day for so many days in a row.
Okay. But you guys are very comfortable then that we don't need those extra insurance measure. How long does it take if we needed those tanks?
To get,
If we needed to bring them in?
couple days,
Okay.
depending, yeah.
So if something goes wrong, if something else breaks,
Yes. Well,
We'd like to not talk about that,
yeah.
but yes, it would depend on availability.
I was
I mean,
a
it's-
business owner and a
Yes.
preschool teacher, I always anticipate the worst.
Yes. It depends on availability, but it doesn't take that long for the delivery. It's just whether or not they immediately have the tanks available.
Okay.
Right, and if there's a big storm coming, other people might want them too, at the same time.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you, okay,
Thank you.
so now we have 9 attorneys report.
Yeah, I hadn't planned to deliver anything. I usually spend a lot of time talking in closed session, and today was not, was a little shorter than normal. So I've given up preparing these for a while. I did go to a conference a couple of weeks ago, but it was NACWA, they did that in. But there's no point in talking about
Okay.
that now. We're on target for getting out
There we
early,
go.
I think.
I just said, thank you, Carl. No worries, we appreciate that. Okay, director, number 10, director's report.
I got nothing.
All right. So then we have 11, and so the topics, I think, we're doing.
Okay, I will be gone on the 14th, that's a for sure. So Jim, if you can calendar that.
I've got it-
Thank you.
written down.
Next meeting, okay.
I'm gonna take the calendar.
Woo-hoo!
So with that, okay,
Uh,
meeting's adjourned, thank you so much.